You won't own games anymore. You won't own anything anymore, and you'll be happy.
You will own nothing, and you will be happy.
I've heard about that.
This is the future according to the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
And whether you know it or not, gaming has been taking steps in that direction for a long time. In just a decade, video games have shifted from being things you own to software you rent. A world where thousands of dollars spent can be deleted in a second.
Well, I don't care about people having their money deleted because you shouldn't have spent the money in the first place. And if you want to know a really hot take, I think that if you spent $1,000 in a video game, you deleted it whenever you spent the money. But it's still sad that people get their shit hacked.
The future looks so bleak, yet also looks so great.
This is genuinely how many games you get on Game Pass.
It's a lot.
In a moment, I'll tell you how Nintendo started their own gaming subscription service and why you won't own games anymore. But first, we need to talk about our video sponsor. Sponsors are important for our channel because 50% of all of our revenue goes directly into the Going Indie Fund. We hope that with this fund, we can help indie developers get the finances they need to finish their games. So that being said, I need to talk about this video sponsor, Opera GX. I have been using Opera GX for a while now, and it's been especially great for when I'm traveling.
This is that guy on Twitter, right?
I travel a lot for work, and I like having my gaming laptop so I can play when I'm not home. But the
Yeah,
laptop
it's like it's no, it's the VTuber.
while I play. Want to keep those Chrome tabs open while you game? Nope. They take way too much CPU or RAM. I've got to close every tab before I launch Steam. But that's not the case.
He's
with
so
Opera
good on
GX.
Twitter.
I can keep a bunch of tabs open, and it doesn't impact my performance at all.
Somebody says you never owned movies and TV shows and music. Yes, you did. You owned the physical copy of it, and you owned your own consumption of it, but you did not own the rights to distribute it to other people. Now, you don't even own the right to consume it.
Not to mention it has a panel that lets me limit the amount of CPU or RAM. Even having 20 tabs open isn't a problem. What's even better is that Opera GX has an import tool, which allowed me to import all my settings from Chrome. This was huge since I have multiple emails and all sorts of bookmarks. Not to mention I can customize everything with mods from the GX store. Want to listen to the Hollow Knight soundtrack while you browse?
That's
You got
nice.
background music and beautiful wallpaper. Want tabs and keyboards to make sounds?
Maybe one day I'll try and play that game again for the third time.
You got it. Mods are great and they're super easy to disable and enable in the menu. So if you have a potato computer like me and you need the perfect gaming browser, check out my link below and download Opera GX today. Thanks to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. While live service model is the trendy new buzzword in gaming, companies have been trying to make this work since the very beginning. Back in the 80s, some of the oldest
Intellivision? Holy fuck, I haven't heard that in 10 years.
companies released their very
10
own
years ago, I hadn't heard that in 10 years. Bro, this shit died so long. It was like the 90s.
subscription gaming services.
Yeah, look at
Just
that.
like today, these subscriptions gave you access to a bunch of
that's
titles
why you don't
without
hear
ever
about it
having to
anymore.
actually buy them. You just had to pay a monthly fee.
Yeah.
But Mattel and Atari weren't the only ones to try the subscription model. In the 90s, Nintendo and
There
Sega
he
also
is.
took a crack at it. Sega
Bro,
called
I
their
wanna
part the
go back.
subscription model. In the 90s,
Oh my god, man. Bro, I remember, bro, I played the fuck out of this game.
Nintendo and Sega also took a crack at it. Sega called
what?
theirs
Yep,
the
there he
Sega
is.
Channel, and it used a cable television adapter to let you play a bunch of games,
Oh, I never had
rotating the
this.
selection every month. Nintendo called theirs Satellaview, which used satellite signals through a special tuner you attached to
That's
the SNES.
nuts. I never had
It
that.
offered games, magazines, and other media you could
Wow.
all download onto your console.
I'm actually learning
These
something. I
services
didn't know
were
any of
ahead
that.
of their time.
Did you guys
While they
have
only
any of
lasted
this?
a couple years before ending, the gaming companies knew that once the technology got better, this would be the
Mm-hmm.
future. People and technology just weren't ready for game subscription services. But then some third-party companies gave it a try.
Right.
In the 2000s, we got the first real taste of subscription
Yeah, I
gaming.
remember, like, didn't you have, there was GameFly, and then I remember there was, like, did you guys have Game Crazy? It was like a rental service for video games, and you could, like, get, it was like, I don't know, like a certain amount of money a month, and you could, like, rent games whenever you wanted.
With Blockbuster
What
and
the
GameFly.
fuck? Dude, I forgot all about
Blockbuster had
that.
copies you could pick up in the store, and GameFly would mail them straight
Hollywood
to your
videos,
door.
yeah.
And who could forget those commercials?
We paid $69 back.
That's a lot of baloney.
So as we can see, the subscription model has been around in the gaming industry for a long time. But it's taken 40 years to finally take off. And now, it's really taking over. Game Pass, Ubisoft Plus, EA Play, PlayStation Now, Apple Arcade. These services are everywhere. Nearly every company has their own version or variation. The technology to make the gaming subscription model work is finally here, and people are worried. Right now, the future of gaming looks murky to a lot of people. But before gaming tried the subscription model, other forms of media were knee-deep, and we can look to them to foresee the future. When the television came out, all you needed was an antenna to watch.
You got Netflix, too. Netflix originally used to not be streaming. I remember whenever Netflix made streaming. Because my dad had Netflix in like 2004, 2005, something like whenever it first came out, and he had been ordering DVDs. Well, he still is. Like last month, like the last month that Netflix ever did the DVD subscription service, I had to check his fucking mail, and I brought in the Netflix disc that he had been getting ever since I was in high school. We've been doing it the entire fucking time. Yep, Netflix, yeah, he still does it, man.
Shows, with each channel being broadcasted over radio waves directly to your family room. In the beginning, people only got 3 channels. Once you had the TV, you could watch anything your antenna picked up. You really had to fiddle with it, but it was a one-time payment. Everything changed, though, in 1972, when HBO created the first cable television service, pay TV. Other companies saw what was happening and wanted a piece of the pie, creating copycat services left and right. By the end of the 80s, 53 million houses now had cable television. The cable subscription model was becoming the new norm. And
well, I guess that's probably what we should do now, right? Just like bundle up all the subscription services together again. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Now, 50 years later, we look at the cable television as legacy media, something outdated that only old people use. From cable TV to streaming services to YouTube, there are more platforms to watch movies and shows than ever thought possible. I mean, you can still buy that antenna and watch a few channels.
I feel like there's like a fatigue, you know, from how many people that have all these different services and everything. There's way too many of them. But like I say that, but where's my data for this? Because it's a vibe check, right? But like, where's the data? How do I know that? I don't know that. I'm just guessing. So maybe they actually are making a lot of money still. Because I bet a lot of people, you've got to remember, the average person, think about how dumb the average person is, and then realize that half of them are even dumber than that. How many people do you know that have a subscription to like 2 or 3 of these services that they don't even use or that they forgot about? George Carlin, that's right, the GOAT. My wife, sounds like you got yourself a problem. Me? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's a lot of them, right? So there you go. So I say it's a bad thing, but damn.
No additional cost, but it's not enough. Who's doing that? We want Netflix, Prime, ESPN, Mr. Beast, and more. We don't just want 3 options or even 3,000 options. Somehow now we want millions.
300 million.
It's easier than ever to come home after work or school, sit down on the couch, and
I think people just don't want to have to commit to paying for something like that they don't know how long they're going to invest their time into it. Because content now is like much more piecemeal, and it's not viewed as much of a holistic experience. So, like, people don't really subscribe for, like, a month or, like, a year for something. They just want to watch 1 or 2 things. Like, people get Disney Plus to watch Mandalorian. People get Hulu to watch some TV show. People get HBO Go to watch Game of Thrones. People get, you know, like, and so, like, there's, like, 1 or 2 series that's, like, really good. Like, they get Crunchyroll to watch, I don't know, like, some new anime or something like that. And that's it. So, Rick and Morty, yeah, whatever. And people don't want to have to buy an entire service just to watch like maybe 1 or 2 products.
Some episodes of your favorite TV show. You don't even need to DVR the show or wait till Saturday morning.
You're watching Boomerang
I
on
remember
Cartoon
Boomerang.
Network.
Millions of movies, TV shows, and videos are at your fingertips. It's mind-blowing. I can't imagine what someone from the 40s would think if they saw all this. It really is.
Well, I tell you, my dad thinks it's great. He's born 1947. He fucking loves this shit. Yeah, like watches TV every goddamn day.
It's incredible, and it's all thanks to the subscription model. It's made media accessible. But there's a problem in all this. While the subscription service has been prevalent in entertainment for a long time, and it's brought media to the masses, we can see how companies have pushed the boundaries, seeking new ways to nickel and dime its users. HBO...
Oh, like, dude, like having to watch ads whenever you're paying money for it, like, what the fuck?
In the 90s, for example, started adding other channels to their platform. Optional add-ons not included in the base price. Not terrible, but it gets worse. A more recent example is Amazon, who announced that they will be adding commercials to Amazon Prime, which originally was a perk included in the $140 annual Prime fee. So a perk that was included is now an additional cost. Where it gets really devious is when we look outside entertainment. Companies
I think one of the problems that these companies have is that consumers are relatively inelastic. And what that means is like they don't like having prices change. So, and this is a problem that video games run into, right? Because like video games, people say like, well, I don't want to pay $70 for a video game. Well, bitch, you've been paying $70, $60 for a video game for 15 years. What's still the same price 15 years ago? Almost nothing. So people don't want to spend more money, but inflation keeps happening and people keep getting charged more money for everything. The cost of living goes up, the cost of everything goes up, and video games are supposed to stay the same. Entertainment's supposed to stay the same. That's very hard to do. It's extremely hard to do. And the truth is that it's not sustainable. You can't keep the same price for everything. So what do? They add in these secondary charges so they can kind of like just eat you, but they're only eating you one bite at a time, so you can't tell. They're eating you very slowly, right?
Mercedes-Benz recently started locking certain car features behind subscription fees, like faster acceleration. Yes. And in 2022, they made over $1 billion.
This should be illegal, by the way. In my opinion, well, actually not everything, but like any sort of functionality of the car should be unlocked as a baseline. I actually think like this is like straight up super dangerous and actually scary. That like you have car manufacturers that are paywalling certain features. Now, there are some things that it makes sense for. For example, like if you have like OnStar where you can call people and have like on-demand connection to them, obviously you've got to chip in for that because it's an ongoing service. But if it's like something that is simply locked like by the dealership and that your car can't access this unless you do some sort of arbitrary thing, I think this should straight up be illegal. But if they don't make it illegal, I think they should make airbags part of the subscription. We've got a lot of problems with poor people. Let's solve them.
Off these subscription-based features. That's just a cherry on top of all the other money they make selling cars. So you not only have to pay for the Mercedes, but you have to pay to use the car in a certain way, which is absolutely insane.
It's disgusting.
And because of how successful Mercedes has been, most automakers are now planning on
doing
implementing
it. Yeah, exactly. See, this is
the
the thing, right? Is that as soon as one of them does it, they all start doing it. Because you have to understand that consumers think about think about a bird that flies into a wall. That's what the average consumer's like. So they'll always buy this stuff because they're just stupid. Yeah, and they won't have any airbags.
Subscriptions. So obviously, subscription services aren't going away anytime soon.
Right.
And it's becoming so prominent that it's infiltrating.
Oh, and by the way, like I'm actually totally fine with like video games having sub-services like Game Pass. I think that's totally okay. I think the problem is whenever you actually pay full price for a game and then you're not able to access it because of some arbitrary reason, like a licensing thing. That's what I have a problem with. I think game services like Game Pass are a net positive.
Industry. But what does this mean for the gaming industry? Well, let's look at the negatives first.
Okay.
Back in the day when we were blown into game cartridges and listening to Robin Williams tell us to
Seize the day.
you owned every game you bought. You had a physical copy and you could do whatever you wanted with it. Share it with a friend.
Technically not true. There were restrictions. You cannot redistribute the games, and even then there were rules, but logistically they were impossible to enforce.
And destroy it. Great. It was yours to do as you please.
Seize the day.
But with players transitioning to digital games and subscription models, this is changing rapidly. Most of the games you own aren't actually yours. It says it right at the beginning of the Steam subscriber agreement. The content and services are licensed, not sold.
I think that for a game that's a live service, it's impossible to make it any other way, naturally, right? But the difference is that if it's a game like, for example, Baldur's Gate 3, which is not like this, it doesn't have this problem, but for a lot of other games like Elden Ring, you should be able to buy this game and have full autonomy of what you do with this game. Like, absolutely. So, like, the idea that the the developer or somebody like that can take you off of the game if the game is not a multiplayer online game that's like a live service game, I don't think they should be able to do that. Because I think that's something that you are entitled to because you purchased the game. They want to prevent piracy? Preventing piracy is important, but consumer rights are more important.
Agreement everyone signs, but no one ever reads, tells you that you own nothing on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
You're just buying the right to use what you purchase.
Yeah.
And it gets better. Later on the
this is
subscriber
a huge
agreement,
issue.
It says Valve may restrict or terminate your account for any conduct or activity that breaches the Steam online conduct rules. A lot of people...
Yeah, in my mind, I think there's like two categories of games. There's like live service games, and then there is, fucking just like single player games like Super Mario World.
Myself included, have hundreds or even thousands of dollars worth of games on their account. And at a push of a button, you could lose all of them.
That's right.
At least physical games are still safe, right? You just buy the disc. Not exactly. If you buy a physical copy of the game today, you better hope the game has an offline mode. Because if the game is online only, owning that physical disc is nothing more than a cool decoration to sit on your shelf. The developers can still revoke your access at any time.
How is he, dude? Is he actually becoming a wizard? Yes. And he's only becoming more powerful. That's the thing. It's like now Blizzard and Activision are coming to him.
If they decide you violated their terms of use. Now, Valve isn't going around restricting and terminating accounts left and right. It's not like they're attacking their players.
And this is a really good point, right? Is because like Steam, I think, is an incredibly ethical service, and it is so like consumer friendly. And for me as a user, I've used Steam for over 15 years. I've had it ever since like I think I was in high school or something, like maybe 1 year into college. I don't know. But like people have such a high like value of Steam because people love Gavin, people love Steam, and it's a great service that puts customers first. But what happens if what happens if that changes in 20 years? And that's why it's important not to have a monopoly. That's the thing. Because nothing lasts forever. And sales, yes, absolutely. And so I hope it doesn't. But man, what happens? And that's why I think that for at least gamers don't view this as a problem. Because the truth is that we are being treated, at least by Steam, from my perspective, we are being treated incredibly fairly. I am very happy with Steam. I think Steam is extremely fair, and I'm positive about it. So, like, we're not complaining about this, but it doesn't mean that there's not a problem. It just means that nothing has gone wrong yet.
Want people to trust and enjoy Steam. However, some other companies are more than happy to abuse powerless customers. In mid-2023, Ubisoft was found deleting accounts due to inactivity.
So we have
this was not entirely accurate.
temporarily suspended your inactive Ubisoft account, and you have 30 days.
Yeah, and this was something that apparently Ubisoft had to do in accordance with GDPR, which was a regulation in Europe. Because other companies had to do this as well. So it's not actually something that's exclusive to Ubisoft, and I actually don't think this is a Ubisoft L. Ubisoft has had many Ls. I don't think this is one of them.
To reactivate it.
Additionally, the popular game engine Unity recently
does it
announced
too?
some
Yes,
massive
all companies
changes
have
to
to.
their monetization model, surprising everyone with just a blog and a social media post.
Yeah, the Unity thing was horrible.
Unity was screwing with people's livelihoods, and they promised...
And remember, like, the CEO of Unity stepped down because of it. Like John Riccatello, or whatever his name was.
they wouldn't. You see, when Unity was released in 2005, it was a one-time purchase. You
Yeah.
bought the software and you owned it. But then they shifted to a subscription model, a yearly payment plan that followed in the footsteps of Adobe and other software companies. And when Unity made this change, they said that there would never be any royalties with Unity. You would just pay your yearly subscriptions and you could use Unity. No strings attached. We're not nickel and diming people, and we're not charging them a royalty. When we say it's free, it's free. When we say it's $75 a month, it's $75 a month. But
To be fair, it was a mistake for him to have said that, because it's like you can never rule something like this out in the future based off of, like, you know, business projection. But that's definitely one reason why people used Unity.
then, in September of 2023,
was really
Unity announced this, going back on their promise. On top of the subscription model, which already charged up to $2,000 a year, Unity added download fees. Every time someone downloaded a game that used Unity, the developers would be charged up to 20 cents.
Yep.
The number of times I have deleted and reinstalled games is a lot.
Yeah, like, From Software would have to pay like $1 at that point. Like, I probably uninstalled and reinstalled Dark Souls 2 like 5 times. Yeah, so they'd have to pay $1 for me to play that game, which I think isn't enough. I think I should keep reinstalling it and uninstalling it, because fuck that game.
Constantly uninstalling games so I could play something else. Can you imagine being a game developer and selling your game for $5 and losing 20 cents every time some
Jesus.
moron like me reinstalls
And that's
your
the
game?
thing, right? Is like having a flat amount is like what's really bad, right? Because like what's 20 cents out of $5? Fuck, that's like what? Like 5%. That's huge.
Game. It's ludicrous. While these changes wouldn't take effect unless your game hits a certain threshold, Unity had
4%.
no way to differentiate pirated copies,
maybe you're right.
reinstalls, or first installs. And so as a developer, you have two options. You can either start over development on a new engine, which is incredibly difficult and costly, or deal with the changes and hope you can still make money.
Just get
also
dicked.
costly. But some of these devs have been working on their game for 3 years.
Exactly.
Starting over would be devastating. Some developers I talked with thought about just throwing everything away.
Just giving
while
up.
Others who
Yep.
had already published their games were
This was a
considering
meme.
removing them off Steam, since the download fee at release
Mm-hmm.
was retroactive. Unity's terms of service also used to say that you wouldn't have to use the new terms if your game wasn't using the newer versions of Unity. If the updated terms adversely impact your rights, you may elect to continue to use any current year version of the Unity software.
Yeah.
That was a clause that used to exist. Unity quietly changed that in April. It's
convenient
moving
for
this
them.
section so they could pull off
Monetarily
this new
convenient.
monetization method. You can see why there was so much backlash.
Oh, yeah,
Unity
everybody
has
was
walked
pissed.
back or toned down
Everybody
some of these
was mad
changes,
about
but
this.
the download monetization is ultimately still there. And this highlights the bigger problem. When you're locked into a system and they suddenly change the model on you, there's no
We've changed the deal. I've altered the deal. Pray that I do not alter it any further. If your business model is similar to Darth Vader, there just might be a problem.
nothing you can do. Just like television, movies, or even cars, we are moving away from owning video games. And it always starts out positive. HBO, Mercedes, Unity, all of these platforms or products have brought their customers enormous amounts of value.
They have.
With each of these companies being pioneers in their industries. But with time,
I have Netflix.
they have stopped focusing on what value they can deliver you and are now focused on what value they can extract from you. The pattern seems to be create a great product or service, make it available for the masses, get millions of adopters, and once people are hooked on the product, then you add new monetization methods.
Yeah,
And right now,
it's like
the
fishing.
video game industry is here in the framework, amassing millions of individuals on subscription platforms. But what happens when Game Pass becomes like Amazon Prime? When the market matures and a few select services have majority market share, they'll do the same thing every other industry has done.
And that's actually a very good point, is because, obviously right now, and this is the same thing with Steam, is that Steam is so positive and so great that they don't do this, but Steam could do this, and people, it's not like everybody would go over to Epic Game Store, right? Like, they could just fuck people. So, like, this is the problem with having, like duopolies instead of monopolies, or having, like, basically like a handful of companies that function as a monopoly because they just act in unison.
Ways to get you to pay, and it all sounds terrible. But there is a positive to all this. You see, right now we're at the end of this framework for purchase games. We buy games for $60 a pop, and then we have to pay an additional $10, $50, $100 to experience the whole game. These microtransactions are the bane of gamers right now, and it's why so many people are angry and upset with current market practices. I
have no problem with games that have microtransactions. I think that that's something the free market should decide for themselves. But what I do have a problem with is gambling in video games and like premium currencies in games. Because you're rich? No, it's because I just don't pay money for them. I just don't spend money on those things because they're stupid. It's simple. Like I quit BDO because I didn't want to spend money on it because it was stupid. Yeah, I just don't do it. It's easy. But anyway, the point is that if you're going to do something like this, I think that's what's really harmful, is whenever you have gambling. Because I think base microtransactions that just make the game easier, that is something that gamers as a free market should be able to decide whether they're okay with or not. You're working now? No, I've done it for stream content, sure. But like that's not what I'm doing on my own personal time. Does that make sense?
Pendulum of business. Starts good, we adopt, companies abuse us, we tolerate it for a bit, and then boom. People revolt, they get angry, companies pull back on the monetization abuse, and the pendulum starts swinging back. Usually because new companies come in to compete and fill the value gap. And with the games as a service fatigue and introduction of all these low-cost game subscription platforms, we are about to see a huge positive shift in the gaming market. Just like
I also think that with Unity I don't think is really an example of this, because Unity has a completely different audience and business model than, let's say, Game Pass or Netflix does. Because Game Pass and Netflix, they are not dealing with another business. The people that use Unity, or at least the ones that seriously use Unity in a way that it would affect them by the monetization changes, those people are other businesses. And other businesses, like the level of trust and like accountability that you have whenever you do business to business relationships versus business to customer is totally different. And business to business is so much higher because like they basically have to build a castle on your castle. So if you're changing your castle all the time, they're going to build their castle somewhere else. But for like a consumer, they're just like, well, this game has bad shit, or, it's like, oh, it's a bad patch, something like that's a scam. Whatever, I just won't play it. Or maybe I will play it, who cares, right? It's minimal effect. But like with business to business, you're losing potentially like millions of dollars.
The shift from paying $1 a song on iTunes to paying $10 a month for millions of songs on Spotify.
Is so good.
Access price per game is drastically decreasing. As a personal subscriber of Game Pass, I didn't have to pay $70 to play Starfield when it came out. I didn't
Really?
even
That's
download
good.
it. I just streamed the game.
I had to pay $100.
To see if I would like it. I also didn't have to buy Fable or Tunic or Halo Wars or a Short Hike.
I always wanted to play
try
Tunic.
each of these games on my PC and even my phone. I just bought this guy for 20-something bucks, and I've been playing Fable on my phone for days. Very nostalgic. But we don't even need a console anymore to play on a TV. This is the future of gaming. Yes, it can be scary, but like every new shift in the market, it brings something
Gears of
good
War.
and bad. And I believe the good outweighs the bad.
Jesus,
Even if we
man,
had
I
the
forgot all
option to
about
go
that
back to a
game.
time
So
where we
good.
purchase CDs and records and games and movies, the majority of people don't want to. Because
Well, it's because there's too much space. And also, like, what if you buy it? Have you guys ever bought a game and, like, you played it and it sucked and it's like, God damn it, I just wasted $50? Like, absolutely that happens. And subscription-based services do have value. It's not that they don't have value. I think that it's a very different thing. Subscription-based services are good. Not being able to buy video games and own the autonomy of consumption of that game is bad. That's what's really bad. Not subscription services.
so much easier and cheaper having a subscription. I personally don't want to go back to when I had to buy every song on iTunes or buy movies at the store for $15. I like my Netflix subscription. I like my Spotify. And I've been liking Game Pass. This platform gave me access to games I normally wouldn't try or pick up. This is incredible. It makes video games
I had a
more
subscription to
accessible than
LimeWire.
ever. And on top of making games cheaper and more available, subscription services are better for indie developers. During a recent court case involving Microsoft and the FTC, a group of indie devs actually argued that subscription services like Game Pass are crucial to the success of indie games.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody says that's what I work on every day, to make sure you actually own your digital assets. Unless you're working with lawmakers, then you're just wasting your time. This is something that can only be enforced by regulation in the government. You're not going to convince a company into doing this. We are? Okay, great. I'd love to hear what you guys are doing. That's really good to hear. Because, yeah, you need to have, like, there needs to be, we have a ton of lawyers. Good luck, man. Good luck.
Increase the odds that players will discover indie games and lower the cost for players to try them when they do, since players would otherwise have to buy indie games outright. An unknown studio will have a really hard time convincing people to buy their game, but if they get their title on a subscription service, players will see their game sitting right next to the big boys.
A good example of that is Lies of P. I think Lies of P is a new game, and a lot of people just checked it out because of Game Pass. And that's why it sold over 1 million copies.
Platforms drastically
Deserved,
lower the
by the
barrier
way.
to entry for indie developers, and they can
The
level
best
the
Souls-like
playing
game
field.
that's
So
ever
the
been
writing's
made.
on the wall. Companies, indie developers, and most people prefer
This game was really good too.
subscriptions.
Hi-Fi
This
Rush. I
is
played
the
it.
future. Just like how we don't own songs,
worth
movies,
playing.
or antennas. Pretty soon, we won't own games anymore. We'll be paying monthly to access thousands of titles. Some companies will push the model too far, forcing people to revolt. Some will add weird restrictions or limit the games you play. Who knows? There are negatives and positives to this model, but I can confidently say that a huge industry shift is coming. The way players are accessing games is becoming more and more digital, and new leaked hardware reflects that. We will no longer fight over which console has the best games, but which subscription service. You want to play the new
kind of
Grand
already
Theft
happens.
Auto? You have to subscribe to Rockstar Plus. Want to
Yeah.
play the new NBA 2K game? Sorry, better subscribe to 2K Premium. The era
Well,
of
that probably is going to happen, to be fair. Neo Geo. Oh my God. There's the Intellivision. Oh my God. Look at these Dreamcast. Dude, is that the Japanese version of the Nintendo? Or Super Nintendo? I think it might be, right? Oh my God.
physical games and dedicated video game consoles are coming to an end. And if you want to understand how the subscription model is not only killing physical games, but is killing the console, subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. Hey everyone, this week's indie game highlight is Isle Goblin, where you defend your goblin homeland in this awesome top-down RPG adventure. The game is still being developed by Watt, but you can wishlist his game or check out his incredible
like a decent
devlogs here
game.
on YouTube. Check out Isle Goblin and let Watt know what you think.
Yeah, it's a decent game. That's all right. I feel like, again, the real problem is the lack of consumer protections for being able to own digital assets that are not connected to the internet and don't require an internet connection. And I think that regulation and consumer protections are not in line with how fast the industry has evolved. Like, if you buy a video game and it's a game that's not an online game, like, I'm not talking about buying, I don't know, World of Warcraft. I'm talking about if you buy Halo 3, or you buy Baldur's Gate 3, or Elden Ring, or Dark Souls, you should own that game in its entirety. Like, that game should be provided and given to you 100%. There's not like they can't ban you from it. They can ban you from online. I think that's totally fucking fair. And that's what Elden Ring does, for example, because From Software is amazing. But a lot of these companies have too much control. And I think that it's important for consumers to have some degree of control over the things that they spend their money on, especially whenever they spend that much money on it. Why would you expect consumer protection whenever companies own politicians? Well, we have a lot of consumer protections right now. You could use that logic with any type of consumer protection that we already have against that. So, like, yes, consumer protections happen even despite this. So can we agree with that take? And also, like, if enough people want something, it happens. That's how voting works. So I just hope more people understand it. Now, will it happen? Probably not, because this is such a niche issue that a lot of people don't really understand it. And it happens in such an abstract sense that I don't think people really respect or care about it that much. But I do think it's a big issue. If you own it, don't expect a software update to fix bugs. Very good point. I think you're right. Sure, but it can also be detrimental. Imagine Vampire Survivors was on subs from the beginning. He probably would accept pennies from Microsoft. Well, I don't know exactly. Voting only works in Switzerland. Voting works better than a lot of other things, okay? Go tell somebody that lives in Russia or China If you're an American, oh, voting doesn't work. But we don't have voting here. Shut the fuck up. Of course you have voting. You don't know what not having rights is. It's so fucking annoying. Like LARPing revolutionaries. I don't want to hear that shit. Let me see here. Probably doesn't get NFTs, doesn't explain the problem where there's solutions. No, you're so stupid. Like, NFTs have nothing to do with this, because unless you mandate that people have NFTs, and then also who decides whether you own your wallet or not? What happens if your wallet gets stolen? There are a million problems with NFTs because the companies aren't providing it. So unless you make the companies provide it, you can't say, oh, well, we all want NFTs. Well, yeah, but why would the company give you ownership of something that you don't have ownership of? Why would they willfully give away something that they have? It's just stupid to expect. It's so naive. It's crazy how naive people are about this. So no, NFTs don't solve this problem because it's not mandated. You need a government regulation for this. There is no other way around it. And if you don't have it, you're going to have video games that are able to cut you off and services that are able to cut you off for any arbitrary reason that they want, and it will not be fair. And that's not a world that I want to live in. You have cars that have subscription now. It's cars that have subscriptions now. It's ridiculous. Can't get how these NFT idiots think a company will accept you can buy an item in another game or scammy site and have to pay devs with infrastructure to support it. Because they're stupid, that's why. They're stupid and naive. And they're paying money for pictures of cats that are pixelated. They're just stupid, so what do you expect? I mean, there's no, like, why do people think a lot of things? Well, because they're stupid. It's not anything else besides that. It's a time when we thought the future of gaming was cloud streaming, which would be like playing a game on a browser, no download required. Cloud gaming will be the future. It's just not here yet. Google Stadia was about, I think, probably 15 years too early. Google Stadia was like, remember whenever Microsoft made a tablet in like 2000? No, it will not. Okay, we'll see what happens. Yeah, that's what I think. Let me link you guys a video. I think this is a great video. It's only got 12,000 views, so make sure to give it a like, give it some views. I've watched Going Indie videos before, and I think they're really good. So make sure to give them some support. I think they make really good high-quality videos, and I think they deserve more subs, more attention, more viewers, more likes.